Since the dawn of civilization, humanity has been caught in an endless dilemma. Peace, the ultimate goal of all peoples, always seems just out of reach. And war, as destructive as it is recurrent, persists as a means of resolution. But today, two of the most extraordinary minds in history face off in search of an answer. Is peace achieved through strength or peaceful resistance? On one side, Sun Tzu, the military strategist whose wisdom has shaped armies and nations. He views force as an inevitable tool for maintaining order and security. On the other side, Gandhi, the pacifist leader who transformed nonviolent resistance into a powerful weapon for freedom and change. He believes true strength lies in overcoming hatred with compassion. As the world remains divided between conflict and a yearning for harmony, these opposing visions lead us to a profound question. What is more effective, protecting peace with arms or achieving it through love? And you watching us now, which side would you choose? Can humanity ever resolve this eternal enigma? Today on The Great Debates, we will witness a clash of ideas that will challenge our beliefs and may change how we view the world.
Violence is the language of the weak. True strength lies in peace. A man with a weapon may enforce silence, but he will never win the heart. Only peaceful resistance can transform enemies into allies.
Noble words, but fragile. Without strength, you cannot protect the innocent. Peace without power is vulnerability. An enemy who fears no retaliation will destroy everything in his path.
Perhaps you are partly right, but we've seen where strength leads us. Wars are fought out of pride and greed, not protection. When we led the struggle for independence in India, we did so without weapons. The salt boycott, for example, not only challenged the empire, but united the people in a way violence never could.
But what if the British Empire had responded with total brutality? Your peaceful resistance might have been silenced permanently. Even to resist peacefully, you must deter your enemy from crushing you completely. That is the art of strategy. Power must be visible, yet used wisely. As I've said, the greatest victory is one in which no battle is fought.
But look at the cost of that wisdom. When you wield fear as a weapon, you only perpetuate the cycle. After every war, there's a moral void. People become shadows of what they could have been. How can that ever be called victory?
Because without order, there is no peace. Deterrence is the balance that prevents chaos. You cite successful examples of peaceful resistance, but how many others have been crushed because they lacked strength? In many cases, war is unavoidable, and victory depends on preparation. One who knows both their enemy and themselves will never be defeated.
If strength were truly the solution, then why do so many wars end in destruction rather than peace? Wars promise order, but deliver only suffering.
Because they were poorly led. Incompetent leadership, flawed strategies, blind objectives. Wise victory is the one that protects without destruction, and that is rare. The fault doesn't lie in strength, but in how it is used.
Then perhaps the question isn't how to fight, but whether fighting is necessary at all. Physical strength is easy. Moral strength is not. Yet it is moral strength that defines our humanity.
And perhaps both are needed. Without strength, the righteous fall. Without morality, the strong become tyrants. Maybe we're arguing different sides of the same coin. Imagine your city is being invaded. Armed men march through the streets, burn homes, and threaten innocent lives. Tell me, Gandhi, would you stand idle, waiting for the enemy's compassion to save you?
I would resist, but not with weapons. If we resist without violence, we disarm hatred. The cycle of violence cannot be broken with more violence. History has already proven this.
History? History is full of massacres of unarmed people. Without strength, the aggressor advances, relentless. He stops only when he meets resistance. Tell me, how do you save innocent lives while turning the other cheek to the enemy?
When we faced the British Empire, we didn't use weapons, yet we won independence. It wasn't easy. We suffered losses, but our moral strength shifted public opinion. When you fight with love, even the oppressor is transformed. It is a power greater than any army could wield.
You faced the British Empire, which, despite its exploitation, had its own limits. But what would you do against an enemy without honor, against a tyrant who exterminates entire peoples? Think of the Mongols, who devastated everything in their path. Would you offer them peace while your city burned?
If we offer violence, we perpetuate destruction. The Mongols weren't defeated by brute force. They succumbed to their own expansion. Every violent empire carries within it the seeds of its downfall. True peace cannot be sustained through a victory forged in destruction.
And yet, strength is what protects the innocent. Without a show of power, nations fall. Look at the great civilizations that protected themselves through deterrence. Preparing for war prevents conflicts. The enemy respects strength. When he sees the cost of attacking is too high, he backs down.
But what about the cost of strength? You may win a battle, but what of the soul of the people? How many lives are lost in wars that promise peace? How many hearts are hardened by violence? Isn't that a defeat as well?
The greatest defeat is the complete destruction of a people. Chaos reigns where there is no order. If you refuse to fight, you become an easy prey. Even to resist peacefully, you need the structure that strength creates. Deterrence is a necessary evil.
And that's where we disagree. Strength creates fear, not respect. It doesn't transform the aggressor. It only controls him temporarily. I'd rather lose my life than lose my humanity. Peace begins when we choose a different path.
If you lose your life, what happens to those who depend on you? How do you protect those who cannot fight? War, when conducted wisely, can save lives. Protecting is not destroying. It's preventing the worst.
Preventing the worst. War is the worst. Even victory in war is a tragedy. You may defeat the enemy, but who remains to rebuild? Violence destroys both the oppressor and the oppressed. In India, we learned that the hard way. We didn't need weapons to fight, only truth and solidarity.
Truth and solidarity are noble, but fragile in the face of swords and cannons. The peaceful victory you achieved was possible because your enemy had limits. There were no Mongols marching against you. Brutality can only be deterred by greater power.
The greater power lies not in weapons, but in people. In India, we were millions united by the idea that our lives and dignity could neither be bought nor broken by force. That is true power.
And yet, if the British Empire had nothing to lose, reputation, resources, influence, your resistance would have been crushed. That's where strategy comes in. Visible strength, even if never used, is what ensures peace.
And what if visible strength only prolongs fear? You may rule through fear, but you'll never win the hearts of the people. Peace based on strength is like a castle built on sand. Eventually it collapses.
But until it collapses, it maintains order. Order allows people to thrive. Without it, even the noblest ideals descend into chaos. You speak of morality, but how can we sustain it without security? How can we build a just world if we cannot protect it?
Protection based on violence only creates more violence. Morality isn't upheld by fear, but by the courage to confront hatred with compassion. You see strength in the sword. I see strength in the heart that refuses to wield it.
So you'd sacrifice the innocent for an ideal. Let evil triumph while keeping your hands clean. Strategy and strength exist to ensure evil does not prevail.
I'd rather show the world there is a different way, that true strength is refusing to yield to hatred, even in the face of death. War doesn't end evil, it only relocates it. Peace transforms, but it requires sacrifice. That is the price of true victory. I agree that planning and organization are essential. Without strategy, even the most righteous cause risks failure. But strategy should be used to build, not destroy. When you plan for war, you destroy what you claim to protect. Tell me, Sun Tzu, if the cost of victory is losing your humanity, is it worth fighting?
That is a question every leader must ask before marching into battle. Brute force alone destroys both the victor and the vanquished. True power lies in control and wisdom. But Gandhi, how do you preserve your humanity while watching the world around you consumed by chaos? Strategy exists to prevent that.
Preventing chaos with force is only a temporary solution. You build a wall, but hatred finds a way to climb it. The strategy that creates something enduring isn't based on fear, but on transformation. That takes more courage than any sword.
But you speak of transformation as though every enemy is rational. What if you face someone who sees compassion as weakness? How do you transform a tyrant who views humanity as a tool for their ambition?
I disarm them not with force, but with truth. Truth is the most powerful weapon. Even the cruelest tyrant depends on others' acceptance to rule. When you refuse violence and stand firm, the lie of their power begins to crumble.
Interesting. But what if the enemy doesn't crumble? What if they use technology to extend their reach and control the world without ever needing approval? Let's imagine something. An army that feels no pain or remorse. Machines of war controlled by artificial intelligence, without soul, without compassion. How do you confront that with words?
Technology isn't the problem, Sun Tzu. It's merely an extension of who we are. If it's used for evil, the issue lies in the human soul, not the machine. You could try to defeat it with force, but the true solution is to change how we think and act. Artificial intelligence is only dangerous when it reflects our worst intentions.
I agree that technology reflects humanity. But in this scenario, words and moral appeals would fall on deaf ears. You'd be facing machines programmed to destroy, controlled by leaders indifferent to compassion. Tell me, Gandhi, would you sacrifice millions of lives in the hope that your example inspires change?
I would sacrifice my life, but never the lives of millions. The war you describe wouldn't be won by force or resistance. It would be won by global solidarity, by refusing to support regimes that use such technology. Machines can be shut down. Human hearts cannot. Resistance begins when we unite to reject what divides us.
And while you wait for this global solidarity, what happens to those under attack? Would you risk that unity taking decades while lives are destroyed? Strategy, Gandhi, is about acting before it's too late. Force doesn't need to be used, but it must be ready.
Preparing for war is the first step toward waging it. History shows us this time and again, you can create the most powerful weapon, but one day it will be used. The force you see as protection inevitably becomes destruction.
And yet, there are moments when the absence of strength is even more destructive. Look at what happens when power is left in the wrong hands. Leaders without adversaries become oppressors. Even you, Gandhi, needed a moral adversary like the British Empire to prove your cause.
My adversary was more than the empire. It was the very cycle of hatred that governs human relations. When we reject violence, we show there's an alternative. It's not easy, but it's the only way to break the pattern you yourself admit is destructive.
And perhaps the answer lies in the middle ground. Strength that protects, but is never used recklessly. Strategy that avoids battles, but prepares for them. Perhaps balance is the true answer to the dilemma of war and peace.
The balance you describe still places strength at the center. True balance is achieved when we learn to trust the power of truth and compassion, not weapons. Even in the age of artificial intelligence, peace begins in the soul of those who seek it.
The ultimate victory is one no one notices. It's not the force used, but the force displayed that keeps peace. A visible, well-prepared army prevents war before it begins. Gandhi, even peace needs power to sustain it.
But what kind of peace is that, Sun Tzu? A peace that relies on fear? A peace that demands the constant threat of destruction? That isn't peace. It's an armistice. True peace is built on trust, not deterrence. True power lies not in weapons, but in the ability to transform hearts.
Trust is a beautiful ideal, but a vulnerable one. What if the heart you try to transform is impenetrable? You hope compassion will melt a tyrant's intentions, but what happens to the innocent while you try? Deterrence isn't just useful, it's necessary to prevent chaos.
The chaos you fear isn't avoided by force but by understanding. Fear creates submission, not respect. Leaders who rely on fear may control temporarily but never truly govern. Look at leaders who chose the path of peace, like Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. They achieved more than political victories. They earned the dignity of their people.
And even those leaders faced resistance, enemies who didn't respect their intentions. They were fortunate because there were limits to how far their opponents could retaliate. But imagine a scenario where there are no limits. What do you do then? Would you risk the future of millions for your faith in human goodness?
I would risk my life, Sun Tzu, but never the future of millions. My faith in human goodness isn't blind. I know evil exists, but I believe it isn't eradicated with violence, but with example. When you fight with love, even the hardest hearts begin to change.
You speak of change as if it's inevitable. But change takes time. And while you wait, how many suffer? Strength, when used wisely, isn't meant to perpetuate fear, but to provide stability while change happens. You may dream of a world of peace, but someone must ensure that dream isn't destroyed before it becomes reality.
You put too much trust in the stability offered by strength. It's a fragile foundation, Sun Tzu. You build a high wall, but hatred always finds ways to tear it down. I ask you, does fear truly create respect or merely temporary obedience?
Perhaps you're right. Fear alone is a weak foundation, but respect comes from the wisdom in wielding strength, not from strength itself. A wise leader knows when to display power and when to restrain it. That balance is the key to stability.
Balance. That's the word you use to justify the existence of weapons and armies. But there is no balance when peace is always threatened by forces that could turn against it. You prepare for war, and war comes. What you call balance, I call a trap.
And what do you offer as an alternative, Gandhi? An ideal world where everyone embraces compassion and rejects violence. That's not balance. It's utopia. And utopias are fragile. I prefer a world where peace is upheld by controlled, even imperfect, strength, rather than one that collapses from a lack of preparation.
And I prefer a world that strives for ideals, even imperfectly, over one that accepts fear as the price for stability. The power you value so highly is an illusion, Sun Tzu. It lasts only as long as it remains unchallenged. True transformation begins when we abandon fear and choose the harder but more dignified path.
Dignified, yes. But again, while you take the harder path, what happens to those who don't have time to wait? Strength may be temporary, but it saves lives in the present. Without it, chaos is immediate.
The immediate chaos you describe is in fact an opportunity to transform the present. Strength is not the only way to save lives. In India, we saved thousands by showing the power of unity, by refusing to cooperate with injustice. That is more powerful than any weapon.
And yet, you admit that the path of peace demands sacrifices. Perhaps in the end we're discussing two forms of sacrifice: sacrificing the present for future peace, or sacrificing peace for immediate stability. Which is more just? Which is more human?
To be human is to reject the cycle of hatred. You say that strength saves lives, but at what cost? Every life saved by violence bears the weight of trauma, fear, and the perpetuation of war. Humanity cannot thrive while trapped in that cycle. Peace isn't just a dream. It's the only true solution.
And I do not disagree with your vision of peace. I only question how to achieve it without losing everything in the process. Perhaps the difference between us is urgency. You look to the horizon, Gandhi, while I focus on the battlefield ahead.
And perhaps I look to the horizon because I know the battlefield never ends as long as we continue to fight. The horizon is the future that everyone deserves, a future where we choose to transform, not destroy. I acknowledge that strategy has its place. Planning and organization are essential, no matter the path we choose. But true victory, Sun Tzu, is not won with weapons. It is achieved when we avoid violence, when we turn conflict into understanding. That is the only victory truly worth attaining.
You are right, Gandhi, about the essence of victory. Peace is the ultimate goal of any battle. Even the best conducted war must serve a greater purpose: to create stability so that peace can flourish. Violence alone is not the answer, but neither is a lack of preparation.
Then perhaps we agree that preparation, when used wisely, has its merits. But the difference remains: I prepare hearts for compassion, while you prepare armies for containment. I still believe that peace, achieved without bloodshed, is the greatest victory of all.
And I still believe that peace often depends on a visible yet controlled strength. However, I admit that a victory which requires no battle, a war that never begins, is the most complete victory. A well-conducted war is one that never happens.
And it is in that absence that the true challenge lies. It is not about defeating the other, but about defeating ourselves. Ego, fear, hatred, these are the true enemies. If each of us battles these internal adversaries, the need for weapons will vanish.
An internal battle, then. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps the conflict is less on the battlefields and more within our own minds. And in that sense, your peaceful resistance is a form of strategy, one that seeks to disarm not the body, but the soul of the enemy.
And true peace begins when we see the enemy not as a threat, but as a reflection of ourselves. When you fight without hatred, you turn the battle into reconciliation.
Reconciliation is the ideal. But Gandhi, history shows us that the fight never completely ends. Perhaps the true goal is to achieve balance, even if imperfect, while continuing to strive for something greater.
Perhaps balance is the first step, but what we build from it is what truly matters. And I believe we can create something more enduring, a peace that doesn't need fear or force to survive.
Peace and war, two sides of a coin that define the history of humanity. Today, Gandhi and Sun Tzu have shown us that the answer isn't just in the battles fought, but in the choices made before and after them. For Sun Tzu, controlled strength is the foundation of stability. For Gandhi, true power lies in transforming hearts. Two paths, two philosophies, but perhaps both point to a greater truth. The most important struggle isn't against others, but against the fears, hatreds, and divisions within ourselves. And now the question goes to you. Should peace be achieved through strength or peaceful resistance? Do you align with Sun Tzu's strategic vision or Gandhi's transformative ideal? Or perhaps you see value in both? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this debate made you reflect, like this video and subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking and inspiring encounters. Which thinker impacted you the most today? Write below, Gandhi or Sun Tzu? And don't forget to suggest the next debate. Perhaps Socrates versus Nietzsche, exploring whether truth is universal or subjective. Or Kant versus Confucius, discussing Western and Eastern morality. Your ideas make this channel grow, so share your suggestions. War shows us how we face the world. Peace reveals how we face ourselves. Until the next episode of The Great Debates, where the greatest minds in history continue to challenge our ideas and illuminate the present.